So let's work on that questionnaire to Congress. It's not exactly a questionnaire to Congress. It's how is this going to come down, this situation where we have the Julie Sue, we have the Shirley Weber, we have the Kamala Harris, we have the Robert Button. When you have this situation, you have key questions. You have the Constitution of the United States, and members of Congress could sit there and say, okay, the question is, we're asking you four people, are you diabolically opposed to the Constitution of the United States? And there's going to be a yes or a no. If they say yes, then obviously they can't run for office again. They're diabolically opposed to the Constitution. So therefore, they would have to say yes unless they're going to take the fifth. Unless they're going to take the fifth. So this is interesting. Of course, if they're taking the fifth, I don't believe you're allowed to run for office. So now we have the situation where, okay, the Constitution says that artifacts are protected and that anybody attacking artifacts, attacking, destroying, aiding and abetting, that these parties are committing an act of treason so horrible, it's a mandatory death penalty. Mandatory death penalty. So now we have to ask these people and say, okay, are you familiar with this part of the Constitution? Have you read it? You took an oath to the Constitution. Is it yes or no? Did you take an oath to the Constitution? Is this a yes or a no? So the next questions are, okay, well, then if you took an oath, then you should be familiar with that part of the Constitution, which means that basically you have a situation that deals with people, parties that in fact have done what? What have these parties done? Well, they participated in the attack on archives, and that's a criminal matter. Do you see this as a criminal matter? And they have to answer. So then how are they going to answer? They're going to say no. Says, but there's artifacts involved that got destroyed, and the Constitution is clear. The Constitution is clear. This is a criminal matter, a very serious criminal matter. In fact, this is treason. This is treason, actually. And so where does this go next? So now we've got them in dereliction of duty. That's where we're at right now. They don't want to answer questions. Well, how come when you were confronted before, why didn't you answer questions, and why didn't you do the correct thing? Because we have evidence here that you blacklisted candidates. Why did you not compensate candidates? Why did you continue to aid and abet parties to blacklist them from the ballot when Congress ordered money given? It's only your actions that are refusing to turn over the money, and your actions over here that you're refusing to review information stored in your building, in your office, under your charge. Under your charge. Under your charge is evidence, irrefutable, that proves that this person obviously would be entitled to compensation. This person is associated with the process of elections. Don't you see that people associated with the process of elections, when Congress has ordered them to be paid because of you shutting down certain types of election processes? These people have shut down certain types of election processes. Financially, they're ordered to be compensated. Now, we could sit there and argue about what's the negative effect on the election because certain items were shut down. But what about the pay? What about the base pay? So we have dereliction of duty of a party who's in trust. This person's in trust of information that's evidence beyond the shadow of a doubt that among the different ways of looking at the situation, clearly they'd be entitled to money. And clearly, they're also connected to the process of elections. They're also a continuing candidate. So when you're refusing to continue the candidacy and refusing to compensate people, then you're responsible for any other additional damages that occur. You've created a man-made financial tragedy. Somehow you're connected. When it came to your office, came to your desk, it was not addressed. See, I mean, quite frankly, we don't want to hear excuses. Who did this? Who did that? Don't start the upstairs, downstairs game inside the office of who did what. Oh, there's a communication problem. No. We've had enough of that. We've had enough of that. This is treason. This is treason. These are all serious criminal charges. And you have taken no steps. None of these people have taken steps. In any way here, see, that's the interesting thing. None of them have taken steps to show what? To show remorse. To show that, oh, well, there's a something wrong was done. To order payment. We have legal action that is addressed by the Secretary of State. She did not do an investigation. She did not order the EDD to turn monies over. She did not credit the account to put the person on the ballot when it's blatantly obvious what the truth is, that the person is owed money and they're refusing to give them credit. It's very simple. If the state of California owes money, then the Secretary of State of California, when a party says they're a candidate and they're owed money, I need the money for the ballot, you can't blacklist them. You have to credit them. I mean, every which way this goes, you're not even giving the most minimal credit and understanding. Why is that? Why is that? Because we have a situation of an archiver coming under attack. That's a separate set of laws. Those are overlapping separate sets of laws. You know, this is a horrible situation that goes with more extensive pieces. This is an attack on the income of a candidate. That's an act of war. That's an act of war defined by the Constitution. That disqualifies anybody that musters against them and who they're connected to. You're a supporter, you're a muster. You're a supporter of the other people, you're a muster. They're disqualified. How much more do we have to prove here? Where else do these questions go? Because there's a lot more questions. There's a long list of questions here. There's a long list of questions that deal with Harris and her office. There's a long list of questions that deal with the current office. But see, the current office seems to show a policy item that is apparently the same as Harris. Did Harris invent the policy? Who invented the policy? It's a good question. Where did this come from? You know, how could somebody invent a policy that's diabolically opposed to the Constitution of the United States? Parties must assist. You must protect the Constitution of the United States. When someone comes up and says they're under attack and they need their money, and you say, we don't care? This is a no-brainer here. These facts are not hard to figure out. There's evidence in front of you. There is no excuse. Parties, and you're trying to say, oh, it's somebody else's job to do this, this, or this. Well, how would that work? Would that be a civil matter? And they say, oh, it's a less than that. It's a compensative matter. Well, these people, number one, never call back. Number two, read the Constitution again. It's a criminal matter. It's a criminal matter. But to act in good faith, you're supposed to be loyal to the Constitution of the United States. Let me tell you how this is supposed to work. The moment that you heard it, you were supposed to say, oh, wow, this is interesting. We have to immediately investigate this. Let's immediately investigate this. This is an attack upon a candidate. Let's immediately investigate this. But that's not what they did. That's not what you did. It's not what any of y'all did. You know, when all these notices are coming in, you didn't compensate. You didn't bother to check your own records just to see if you could verify whether this person somehow had additional evidence other than their word that they're connected to the process of elections. It's right there. It's right there. Repeatedly, there are signatures there again and again and again and again. Obviously, this person has no problem going out and getting signatures because they went and did it. Look right here. Repeatedly, again and again, document after document after document, again and again and again and again. So obviously they'd have the ability to get signatures if it was allowed for them to go get signatures, except that's been shut down. And you know it's been shut down. You know that stay-at-home orders and shutdown orders went into effect. You know that because you got the memos. They were circulated through every department. You can't say you didn't get that, so you knew that there's a reason to believe that people could come in and say, yeah, there's a problem. You know, I'm just, this is just a big, huge no-brainer here. This is a big, huge no-brainer. There are no excuses here. When it comes to let me explain this to you. When it comes to matters of treason, excuses are not allowed. Loopholes are not allowed. That means you trying to make something up. Oh, well, we do things a different way. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that. It falls directly into your hands. You know, do you recall the word insurrection ever being utilized? That's a yes or no. We want complete disclosure of every time you understand something about what happened with insurrection. We need an opinion from you. We want to see where your head's at, where your mindset's at. Let's see your position. Because you're a head of state, you have to have an opinion. You're a government worker, you have to have an opinion. Because when we're talking about insurrection, you're talking about crimes committed in various nature on a long list. It can be a long list. And among those, you could say possible coup. You could also say, is this anything to do with the process of elections? The answer is definitely yes. So we have a process of elections problem. And you knew this. You knew this. There was extra threat analysis, extra perceived problems that could happen. You got the memos. You got memos telling you there was an increased threat risk. You can't say you didn't. Do you want to stand up and say that you didn't, that you did not get any memos like that? In other words, that no notices came in? You know, where are we going from this? This is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. We have a candidate that's an archiver, and we have artifacts older than the Constitution of the United States that are lost, missing, or destroyed. We have evidence of extreme violence repeatedly happening to these individuals. We have to ask, are you involved? Are you involved in a violent game? Are you some kind of a RICO operator? Are these your people that go out like thugs? Are you associated with this thug business? Because all we seem to see is that there's been a lot of silence out of your department. That doesn't make any sense. Silence means that you are diabolically opposed to the Constitution of the United States, because when you are saying that you're silent, you are saying that you're taking the fifth and that you're refusing to answer any questions on the grounds that you will incriminate yourself. That tells most people generally that you have something to do with it. That in fact, more than likely, you're guilty. And that's earlier starting on it, and this just keeps going on. You're collecting a check. Are you collecting money? Let's follow the money. Let's follow the money. Are you collecting a check, yes or no? Are you collecting a check every month? That's interesting. That's interesting. Well, has any, is candidate Crosby collecting a check every month? Are you going to say you don't know, but the matter also ended up on your desk? He's still saying that the state wouldn't pay him money that it was owed, so he couldn't post to the ballot. You refused to put his name on the ballot. What we're going to have here is a series of excuses coming from you that are lies. Because what we have here is evidence on the ground. What do we have? We have paperwork, break-ins, briefcases, satchels, offices, mobile archives attacked, violently attacked. Documents stolen, documents destroyed, documents strewed out. Looks like people threw a bunch of the documents into the wind, and the wind just blew them all away. By the time anybody could address the situation, it's too late to recover documents. Gee, do you think any of those documents had anything to do with the process of elections? Do you think that any of those documents had anything to do with signatures? Blowing in the wind inside any of these vehicles? He began processes filing at the county level. There are copies of this. There are witnesses to this. So this guy calls you up and says, look, man, he's coming under violent attack. Really, I have to have compensation. What's going on with you people? You won't take calls. What's going on? What's the big silence thing here? There's a big silence thing and violence keeps happening. And then when you're asked questions about it, you're still being silenced. You know what that says to most people? That says you're guilty. That says you're part of a RICO. That says you're involved in violence. That says you're diabolically opposed to the Constitution of the United States. And there's a long, long, long list that goes with that. See, at this point in time, you can't ever be allowed to be an attorney. You can't have a license. You can't ever be allowed to be on the ballot because you're going to lie. You can't be a head of state. You're involved in interference in the process of elections. Election rigging. Where does this all go? And seemingly the same questions or similar questions have a connective tissue to all these four people again and again and again. Police officers issue erroneous tickets in the past. It's investigated by the state of Arkansas that says, this is a ridiculous ticket. This man's done nothing wrong. He's paid all of his taxes. Right here, you're accusing him of not paying his taxes. You're lying. In the past, we have references from the IRS. This says they investigated false impounding. You people were in dereliction of duty and refused to take action. You refused to deal with requests from this person involving their research on elections. Involving their personal legal research on people who owed them money, some of which were parties that were violent and dangerous that had committed assault. So it's interesting. It's interesting that the state of California has a bunch of secret records on people and is lying about it. And you say, oh, no, we don't. Look, first of all, don't go there. There's a whole lot of records because what the state of California keeps putting out are erroneous records. The IRS twice the IRS has said these are erroneous records. The state of California is perpetuating lies. They are doing interstate transmit of lies. That's another felony. They put them in a government computer to begin with in their lies. That's a felony there. Each day, each minute that goes on, that's a continued perpetuation of a crime. Arkansas investigates this other citation. Erroneous, completely erroneous. Ridiculous. The man has no insurance. It's on file right here. Erroneous out of California. What do they do again? They put it in a computer. That's a felony. A government computer. Then they transmit it across state lines. That's another felony. Arkansas sent an electronic copy of their records to you. Your officer wrote something up completely different than the information that was right there in front of his face. Repeatedly. We're talking multiple serial numbers. Multiple serial numbers. The plate has its own serial number. The tab has its own serial number. This is ridiculous. If you like, there's no way to cross-reference what these items are, these physical items that were there. There's no plate on vehicle. This is ridiculous. There's all this photographic evidence, all these direct witnesses. This is ridiculous. He was a filed candidate out of Arkansas. You people, again, complaint. You say no, no, no. You continuously keep saying no, no, no. You are liars. You are liars repeatedly being liars. Harris repeatedly is a liar. Promoting a policy that's diabolically opposed to the Constitution of the United States. You read this policy, that policy is diabolically opposed to the Constitution of the United States. It is an illegal document. It is an illegal policy. It is not allowed. It is one of those types of policies that is forever described as banned by our forefathers, and that anyone who would attempt such a construct, which would deny these other documents, which would deny the Constitution, making it diabolically opposed, is a mandatory death penalty sentence. But you bow your neck and you do it anyhow. A policy that's so ridiculous. This is such a no-brainer. Somebody comes in and says, I'm not sure, I think this person is a spy. Why are these people attacking me? There's a possibility they're a spy because the Germans and the Russians murdered a total between them of 86 members of my family and stole $4 billion worth of land. So there's a possibility this person could be a Russian spy. And the CIA will tell you at any given time there's probably 10,000 people on the payroll. Someplace in a government job, someplace in the United States. 10,000 or more, up to 30,000. Every reason to believe that there's a possibility, at least the possibility, that that person could be a spy. Infiltrating. But your position was silence. Your position was you don't care. Your position was to come up with a bunch of cockamamie excuses. Meaningless. Everything against doing your job and recognizing that the Constitution of the United States had been violated, and that it was your duty to step up and protect the Constitution of the United States. When somebody comes up and says, look, the Constitution's been violated, and you want to have nothing to do with standing with the person who is trying to protect the Constitution of the United States, trying to protect the process of elections. You're trying to find an excuse to play upstairs downstairs game, and it's a treason matter. No excuses are allowed. So let's look at this again, slightly different angle. Let's review this. Slightly different words, approximate meanings. A candidate says, hey, look, I'm under attack, by this person. and you say, oh, well, they're a government employee, we're only allowed to protect them. We are not allowed to protect the voters of California. That's what you're saying. You're saying that you are not allowed to protect the voters of California. You are saying that you are not allowed, number two, to assist in the voters getting disclosure of the truth. That you're not allowed to participate in any investigations to find the truth out. That's number two. You're saying again on this document that you're not allowed to help a candidate out. You're saying in this document that you're not allowed to protect and find out what the truth is about these people when the person is an archiver protected by the Constitution of the United States. This goes on. I got about 480 ways that I can do phrases that show that that policy is diabolically opposed to the Constitution of the United States. And where it leads is that it was told, you were told, no one is allowed to utter against certain items of the Constitution of the United States, and that document is written evidence and is a confession. That is a confession that brings forward the mandatory death penalty. This is such a no-brainer, it's mind-boggling. So let's continue looking at this from some other angles. This looks as though a previous continuing candidate, a Mr. Crosby, deals with somebody called Kamala Harris that has a long history of violating the Constitution of the United States with this policy, continuously discriminating and blacklisting an ongoing and reoccurring candidate, Mr. Crosby, a candidate for the presidency of the United States, and on occasion a candidate for governor. Now, this is really interesting. This is really interesting because you don't want to live up to your oath and protect the process of elections. You don't want to find out whether or not somebody could be a spy. You're not even going to investigate. Your point is your priority order is ignore investigations altogether. Altogether. Just aid and abet that person with getting away further and further. Another question. Is that person collecting a check each month? This person is collecting a government check wherever they're at. No matter wherever they're at, they're collecting a government check. And Kamala Harris was collecting a government check every month. And Kamala Harris's campaign also ended up cashing checks from Donald Trump. These are facts. These are facts. Was Mr. Crosby able to continuously collect a check by going out and doing employment? Was he negatively affected in any way? Was he blacklisted? Were there companies where he lost work, part-time work, full-time work, whatever? Because our records indicate that there were companies that offered him a significant amount of money to be an out-of-state team manager. Oh, basically a lot of it had to do with PR. PR with the customers. And making sure that you got the right photographs and videos of the scene. Go with a couple guys that were technicians, look at the situation, coordinate on the phones with engineers. Come to the conclusion on the problem, decisions would be made, parts would be acquired and sent on the way, generally, and then installed. But you see, if you keep blacklisting his driver's license, this stops him from being able to get that on-demand 24/7 type job to go anywhere in the country that pays a very attractive pay. You know that kind of job. You get $300 for being out-of-state differential every day. You get 65, 85 bucks for meals. You get your hotel covered. You get an extra $80 coverage for emergency clothing. You get all this other differential money. You know, that's a $3,000 a day gig. You know, you're talking about a job that pays $800,000 to $1 million bucks a year. Well, it depends how many days you work. If you only work half the days of the year, it's, you know, $500,000. You know, but you're going to see your actions, your activity beyond the shadow of the doubt. People are already thinking. They're looking at this. They're listening to the questions. They're looking at what the truth is, and it's pretty obvious. You people are intentionally blacklisting. If you keep attacking people's incomes and blacklisting them, of course they're going to be at a disadvantage. Was it the ultimate opportunity for you, Mrs. Harris, to have 18 mobile broadcast RV vehicles destroyed? Did you pay people to attack a candidate because you thought he was sharper than you? Because you thought he read an archive? Are you full of hate because you're partially black and he initially has his identification out of Arkansas? Is this a hate crime? See, these are completely fair questions. The way to resolve this, beyond the shadow of a doubt, is to put you through extensive, I do mean extensive, fMRI lie detector test, extreme calibrations, generous amounts of pharmaceuticals, see whether or not your head struggles inside in the brain to try to lie. If it is, we have to increase the amount of pharmaceuticals until finally we have a levelization, and then we can get the honest fragment images. And if they're not good enough, we'll have to calibrate you some more. And eventually we're going to get the fragments. We're going to get the fragments that reinforce something one way or another. Whether you knew that this policy was a way to shirk your responsibilities, whether it's a policy to abandon your oath to the Constitution of the United States, abandon your oath to the voters, abandon your oath to protect the process of elections, which is part of the whole oath. It's part of the whole thing. Abandon your oath to the state of California. Abandon your oath to humanity, to repeatedly arrange a form of conundrum to negatively affect other players until it's your turn to run for the presidency. So here we have a candidate that was a candidate before you, that was owed millions and millions of dollars before you were a candidate, that's never been paid, but it's connected to you. It's still connected in some way to you. And of course, you were aiding and abetting to make sure that nobody would be able to, have their government checks for employment stopped. You wanted their employment checks to continue. You were the jam car. You had no commitment whatsoever to get to the truth, to investigate, reason to believe, a good reason to believe that A, somebody had committed a crime, B, they were interfering with the process of elections, harassing a candidate, that they were also an archiver. That's a whole series of separate items, also protected by the Constitution. The list goes on. So we understand the truth about following the money. Following the money tells a story. It does. It does. So we clearly have a base foundation of massive dereliction of duty. Oh, that's blatantly obvious. But we need more. We need the real truth. We need to understand, are you a spy? Are you a foreign or domestic spy? Have you taken money from opponent forces? Did you accept money from opponent forces and make a decision contrary to another party who was a competing candidate? I really think the right thing to do here is to do an fMRI. Why do guesswork? Why do guesswork? Maybe you've got extra personalities none of us have seen hidden in your head. Maybe they're all mentally ill or something, whatever it is. I generally think that human beings are not perfect, except some people hide some really dark Lulus, some real big ones. You know, the thing is there's a whole series of other lists to dig out here to get to even more questions. I barely scratched the surface on these questions. It's so blatantly obvious, it's mind-blowing. And you're surrounded by colleagues that don't notice this. Colleagues, nobody's checking on you. Nobody notices this. Other documents are sent to other people. They don't notice this. They don't notice these questions, these basic arguments. They can't see high treason when it's in front of their face. They can't see dereliction of duty when it's in front of their face. Oh, we are in insurrection, make no doubt about that. That extends a lot of things. Erection,